Fred hadn't expected silence to feel so loud. The city moved like nothing had changed, cars gliding past, people laughing, neon lights flickering alive as dusk swallowed the sky. But to him, everything felt wrong. Too calm, too untouched, as if the world had quietly agreed to forget men like him. He stepped off the bus with a single duffel bag slung over his shoulder, boots hitting the pavement with a weight that didn't belong to ordinary men. His broad frame drew glances, some curious, some wary, but no one knew who he was. That was fine. He preferred it that way. Because the man stepping into the city wasn't the same soldier who had left it years ago. Fred had been called many things in the army: unbreakable, relentless, a weapon. But the name that stuck, the one whispered with equal parts awe and fear, was collapse. Because when Fred entered a battlefield, enemies didn't just lose. They broke. There had been missions, nights soaked in gunpowder and screams, moments when entire squads crumbled without him firing a second shot, simply because of the overwhelming force of his presence. Strength wasn't just in his fists, it was in his will, his gaze, the quiet promise of destruction he carried into every fight. But none of that had saved Adrian. Fred paused at the edge of a crosswalk, the memory hitting him like a punch to the chest. Adrian's laugh, loud, reckless, the kind that made even the worst days bearable. "You ever think about what comes after all this?" Adrian had asked once, leaning back against a battered Jeep under a sky full of stars. Fred had shrugged. "No." Adrian smirked. "Yeah, you're the type, me. I'm getting out, finding a city, maybe a rich girl who thinks I'm mysterious." Fred had almost smiled. "Someone gotta teach you how to live, man," Adrian added. That was the last night things felt simple. The crosswalk light turned green, but Fred didn't move. Because the memory didn't stop there. Gunfire. Smoke. Chaos. And Adrian, bleeding out, eyes still defiant even as life slipped through his fingers. "They set us up," Adrian had rasped, gripping Fred's arm with surprising strength. This wasn't just a mission, it was a deal. Fred's jaw tightened as he crossed the street, each step heavy with purpose. A deal. Someone had traded soldiers, lives for profit. And Fred had spent every day since tracking the threads that led back here, to this city. A sleek black car pulled up beside him, the window sliding down smoothly. "Fred." The voice was calm, confident, and unmistakably used to being obeyed. He turned his head slightly. The woman inside was striking, sharp features, icy blue eyes, and an aura of control that wrapped around her like armor. Her blonde hair was pulled back neatly, her posture flawless. She looked like someone who owned the world. And maybe she did. "I was wondering how long it would take you to come back," she said. Fred didn't respond immediately. He studied her, measured her. "Emily Carter," he finally said, his voice low. CEO, billion-dollar empire, untouchable reputation. And according to everything he'd uncovered, connected. She gave a faint smile. "Good, you remember me." "I remember everything." There was a flicker in her eyes, something quick, almost imperceptible. "Get in," she said. Fred didn't move. "I don't take orders anymore." Her smile didn't falter, but her tone shifted, just slightly. "This isn't an order, it's an opportunity." Silence stretched between them. Cars honked behind her, annoyed, but she didn't flinch. Neither did he. Finally, Fred opened the door and slid into the passenger seat. The car pulled away smoothly, the city lights reflecting off the windshield like distant stars. "You've been digging," Emily said, her eyes on the road. "You've been hiding." A soft exhale escaped her, almost like a laugh. "Careful, soldier. Accusations like that can get you in trouble." Fred turned his head, his gaze sharp enough to cut steel. "I don't get in trouble." For a moment, the air in the car felt heavier. Then Emily nodded, as if confirming something to herself. "Good," she said quietly, "because I need someone exactly like you." Fred's expression didn't change. I'm not for hire. I'm not offering money. That got his attention. Then what? Emily slowed the car as they approached a towering glass building, her company's headquarters, gleaming like a monument to power. I'm offering the truth about Adrian. The world seemed to tilt, just slightly. Fred's hand clenched. You have 5 seconds to explain. She parked the car and turned to face him fully. Her composure was still there, but beneath it, something darker stirred. Adrian wasn't supposed to die, she said. He found something he shouldn't have, something big enough that people at the very top decided it was worth eliminating an entire unit. Fred's voice dropped, dangerous. Names. Emily held his gaze. I'll give you everything, names, files, proof. She leaned closer, her voice lowering to a near whisper. But in returns, you help me. Fred's eyes narrowed. With what? Her lips curved slightly, but there was no warmth in it. We pretend to be in a relationship. Fred blinked once. That hadn't been what he expected. You're joking. I never joke about survival. He studied her again, more carefully this time. This is about your enemies. It's about staying alive long enough to destroy them. Fred leaned back slightly, his mind racing. You're a CEO. You have security influence. I have targets on my back, she cut in, and people watching my every move. If I suddenly start digging into things, I'm dead. But if I'm distracted, she gestured between them, if I'm involved with someone like you, someone like me. Her eyes flickered with something almost intrigued. A man whose reputation makes even powerful people nervous. Fred didn't react. But inside, something cold and focused was taking shape. You want protection, he said. I want a partner, she corrected. He let out a quiet breath. And in exchange, Adrian. Her expression softened, just for a moment. I know who gave the order, she said. The world seemed to narrow to that single sentence. Fred's pulse didn't quicken. His breathing didn't change. But something deep inside him shifted, like a storm gathering strength. Say the name. Emily shook her head slightly. Not yet, you'll get it, but once you do, there's no going back. Fred's lips pressed into a thin line. There's no going back for me anyway. A long silence followed. Then Emily extended her hand. Deal. Fred looked at it, then at her, then back at the city outside, bright, alive, completely unaware of the war that was about to begin in its shadows. Slowly, he reached out and took her hand. Her grip was firm, unyielding. Deal, he said. And just like that, the game began. But neither of them said what they were both thinking. Because this wasn't just about revenge. It was about power, betrayal, and a truth so dangerous that once it surfaced, everything would collapse. Just like Fred's enemies always did. If you want, I can continue this into a full multi-part cinematic script with deeper romance tension, betrayal twists, and the final revenge arc. Fred didn't trust her. Not her calm voice, not her controlled breathing, not the way her eyes never revealed more than she wanted. And definitely not the deal. But he trusted one thing. Adrian's last words. They set us up. That wasn't confusion. It wasn't fear. Adrian had known. And now, standing inside the glass tower that pierced the night sky, Fred could feel it. This was where the rot began. The elevator ride was silent. Emily stood beside him, hands loosely folded, posture perfect. Anyone looking would think she was just another powerful executive heading home after a long day. But Fred noticed everything. The slight tension in her shoulders. The almost invisible pause every time the elevator passed a floor. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of something else. Who's watching you? Fred asked, his voice cutting through the silence. Emily didn't look at him. Everyone who smiles at me. Not good enough. A faint exhale escaped her. Board members, investors, government contacts, men who built their fortunes on things that don't officially exist. Fred's jaw tightened. That matched what he'd been finding. Dirty contracts, black ops funding routed through corporations, disappearances hidden behind balance sheets. Adrian had stumbled into something far bigger than either of them had imagined. The elevator doors slid open to a private floor. Dim lighting, polished marble, floor-to-ceiling windows revealing the city stretching endlessly into the dark. Emily stepped out first. Fred followed, his boots echoing softly. "This entire floor is restricted," she said. "No cameras except the ones I control, no staff unless I allow it." Fred's eyes moved slowly, scanning corners, exits, reflections. "You trust your own system." "I trust that I built it myself." "That's not the same thing." She turned slightly, studying him again. "You don't trust anything, do you?" Fred's expression didn't change. "I trust results." A faint, almost amused look crossed her face. "Good," she said. "Then let me show you one." She walked toward a sleek desk and pressed her palm against a hidden panel. A section of the wall slid open silently. Behind it, darkness. Fred didn't hesitate. He stepped forward first. Inside was a smaller room, colder, more contained. Screens flickered to life as Emily followed him in. Files. Images. Names. Numbers. Fred's eyes locked onto the screens, his entire body going still. "Everything you're seeing," Emily said quietly, "is tied to the operation your unit was sent into." Fred stepped closer. Maps appeared, coordinates, financial transfers. And then, a symbol. His breath slowed. He'd seen it before. Burned into crates, marked on documents, hidden in plain sight. "Who are they?" he asked. Emily hesitated. For the first time since he'd met her, she actually hesitated. "They don't have a single name," she said, "but internally they're referred to as the Circle." Fred's gaze hardened. "Original. They don't need to be creative. They just need to be invisible." Fred leaned in slightly, studying the connections. Military contracts. Private security firms. Pharmaceutical companies. Even political funding lines. "They're everywhere," he muttered. "Yes. And you're inside their network." Emily's reflection stared back at her from the screen. "I was born into it." That made him turn. "Fully. You're one of them." Her eyes met his, steady. "I was." Silence fell between them, heavy and dangerous. Fred took a slow step toward her. "Explain that carefully." Emily didn't move. "My father was part of the Circle, high-ranking, untouchable. He built this company as a front, one of many." Fred's voice dropped. "And you just walked away." A shadow passed through her expression. "No one walks away." "Then how are you still alive?" "Because they think I'm still loyal." Fred studied her face, searching for cracks. Lies. Anything. But all he saw was control, and something buried deep beneath it. Something that looked a lot like anger. "You're playing a dangerous game," he said. Her lips curved slightly. "So are you." He didn't smile back. "This isn't a game for me." "I know." Her voice softened, just a fraction. "That's why you're the only one who can help me end it." Fred turned back to the screens. His eyes scanned faster now, connecting pieces. Then he saw it. A file. Partially encrypted. But one name visible. Adrian. His entire body went still. "Open it," he said. Emily didn't move. "Fred. Open it." Her fingers hovered over the control panel. "This is where things change," she said quietly. "Once you see this, you won't be able to." "Open it." The room felt colder. Heavier. Emily exhaled slowly. Then pressed the command. The file expanded. Mission logs. Audio fragments. Visual recordings. Fred leaned closer. And then, a voice. Adrian's voice. Crackling through distorted audio. This isn't right. We're not hitting a weapons site. This is data financial servers. Gunfire. Shouting. Then Adrian again, breathless. They know we're here. Fred, this is a setup. The recording cut sharply. Fred didn't blink. Didn't move. But inside, something snapped into perfect, terrifying focus. Keep going, he said. Emily hesitated again, then pulled up the next piece. A still image. Grainy. Captured from a distance. But clear enough. Men in suits. Watching. Observing. Not soldiers. Not enemies on the ground. Overseers. Fred's voice dropped to something colder than before. They were watching us die. Emily nodded once. Yes. The silence that followed was suffocating. Fred straightened slowly. His presence seemed different now. Heavier. More dangerous. So this wasn't just a cleanup, he said. It was a test. Emily didn't answer immediately. Because she knew. He was right. They wanted to see what would happen, Fred continued. How we'd react, what we'd find. His eyes flicked back to Adrian's name on the screen. And Adrian found something. Emily's voice was barely above a whisper. Yes. Fred turned to her again. Which is why he had to die. She held his gaze. Yes. The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Fred took a slow breath. Then another. And when he spoke again, his voice was calm. Too calm. Who gave the order? Emily's expression tightened. We're not there yet. Fred stepped closer. This time, there was no mistaking the shift. The air itself felt pressured, like something immense was being held back by sheer will. You said you'd tell me. I said I would, she replied, her voice steady but firm. But if I tell you now, you'll go after them tonight. Correct. And you'll die. Fred didn't even blink. That's not your decision. It is if I need you alive. The words landed harder than she expected. For a brief second, something unspoken passed between them. Then it was gone. Fred turned away, running a hand slowly over his face. Thinking. Calculating. Planning. Finally, he spoke. What's step one? Emily watched him carefully. You're really agreeing to this. I already did. And the relationship. Fred's jaw tightened slightly. We play the part. Her eyes searched his face. You don't do anything halfway, do you? No. A small, almost genuine smile appeared on her lips. Good, she said, because neither do I. She stepped closer now, closing the distance between them. Close enough that the tension shifted. From purely strategic to something else. If we're going to sell this, she said softly, it has to look real. Fred didn't move. Didn't step back. Then make it real. Her breath caught, just for a moment. Not fear. Something else. Something far more dangerous. Because she realized something in that instant. Fred wasn't pretending. Not in the way she expected. He wasn't playing a role. He was stepping into a war. And once he did, there was no stopping him. Outside, the city lights burned brighter. Unaware. Unprepared. Because deep inside that tower, a soldier who made enemies collapse had just found his next target. And this time, it wasn't a battlefield. It was an empire. The city didn't sleep. It watched. From glass towers, from black cars idling in silence, from offices where lights never turned off. The circle was already moving. They always were. 3 weeks later, the ballroom shimmered with wealth. Crystal chandeliers, soft orchestral music, Conversations wrapped in polite laughter and hidden intent. At the center of it all, Emily, perfect as ever, elegant, untouchable. And beside her, Fred, tailored suit, calm expression. A ghost dressed like a man who belonged. Eyes were on them, exactly as planned. "They're all here," Emily murmured, barely moving her lips. "Board members, donors, 2 of the inner circle." Fred didn't look at her. "I see them." Across the room, men in expensive suits stood in quiet clusters. Smiling. Watching. Measuring. One of them raised a glass slightly in Emily's direction. She returned the gesture. "Stay close," she said softly. "I'm not the one they're worried about," Fred replied. That wasn't confidence. It was fact. The first move came quietly. A handshake. A greeting. A man stepping forward with a practiced smile. "Emily," he said warmly, "you've outdone yourself tonight." Fred recognized him instantly. One of the overseers. From the image. Watching them die. Emily's smile didn't falter. "Always a pleasure." The man's eyes shifted to Fred. Measured. Curious. "And you are?" Fred met his gaze. No warmth. No hesitation. Someone who finishes what others start. A flicker. Small. But real. The man felt it. Good. Minutes later, the world changed. Not with an explosion. Not with a scream. But with a screen. Every display in the ballroom. Every decorative panel. Every projection surface. Flickered. Then shifted. Conversations faltered. Music stuttered. And then, data. Files. Transfers. Names. The circle. Exposed. A ripple of confusion spread through the room. Then tension. Then fear. Emily didn't move. But her hand found Fred. Lightly. Steady. "It's done," she whispered. Fred's eyes scanned the room. "No," he said quietly. "Now it starts." Security moved too late. Phones lit up. People stepped back. Some tried to leave. Others froze. And a few, the important ones, stopped pretending. Across the room, the man from before wasn't smiling anymore. His expression had gone cold. Calculating. Dangerous. He adjusted his cuff slowly. Then spoke, just loud enough. "Do you really think this ends us?" Fred stepped forward. "Just once. Enough." "It doesn't end you," he said. "It finds you." Sirens began to rise in the distance. Closer. Louder. Closing in. But Fred didn't look toward the exits. He looked at the man. And the others like him. Because for the first time, they weren't invisible. Emily exhaled slowly. Years of control. Of silence. Of playing along. Breaking in a single moment. "It's over," she said. Fred glanced at her. Just briefly. "No," he said again. Softer this time. "It's just out in the open." The man smiled then. Not with charm, but with certainty. "You've made a mistake," he said. "You've turned a shadow war into something far worse." Fred's expression didn't change. Good. The lights flickered again. But this time, they didn't come back. Darkness. A single gunshot echoed. Then another. Screams. Chaos. The sound of something breaking loose. Not collapsing, but evolving. Outside, the city burned brighter. Sirens, lights, movement. A machine waking up too late. Inside the darkness, Fred didn't flinch. Didn't run. Didn't hesitate. Because this was never about exposure. Never about justice. It was about war. And now, everyone knew it had begun. If you want, I can also write an alternate ending where Fred takes down the leader directly. A darker ending where Emily betrays him. Or a sequel opening that continues immediately after the blackout.